Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Episode 6, Mike. I got it right this time. I didn't mess up on the number. We're six episodes in, 6 weeks in. And before we get into what the show's gonna be about the last couple days, the last week of events in the sport of boxing, all of you tuning in who expected to hear an interview with light heavyweight Israel Doufus. We actually had some technical difficulties with our call-in feature, and also the dreaded LA traffic took a hold of him. So we just decided it'd be better to just reschedule him for a later date, especially since his fight date is mid-November, right, Mike? Something around that
November
time?
17th, I believe.
So to everybody who's tuning in, expecting that interview, we apologize. Some things just never line up the way we wanted, but he will be on in the next couple weeks or so. He has a fight November 17th, and then you also told me, Mike, earlier that he's expecting a child. Is that correct?
Yeah, so congratulations to Israel and family from the whole of the team here at the Last Round Podcast.
Yeah, congratulations. Congratulations. That's awesome. So that's a big moment, big deal. We wish him all the best, and I'm sure our team here and everything, we'll get them on schedule again in the next couple of weeks. So, now that we got that out in the open, this past Saturday night, Mike, what happened?
It's a good fight. Looking forward to it. Terence Crawford, Jose Benavidez.
WBO welterweight world championship bout on ESPN from, was it Omaha?
From Omaha, who's in TC.
Or was it, because he's fought in Omaha and didn't he fight in Lincoln?
Yeah, this one was Omaha,
right?
In his backyard,
right there in Bud Crawford's backyard. What's funny? Before I mentioned Bud Crawford, the people I was watching the fight with, somebody, they're not really a boxing fan, but they were watching. It was on ESPN. They were like, "Oh, is his name Bud because he smokes weed?" I was like, "I don't think so." That's like, but yeah, I'm sure you're not the first or the last person to ask that. But yeah, that was kind of funny just to throw that in there. But, main event, before we get into the main event of Terence Crawford and Jose Benavidez Jr., I got that right? Because I know his brother's David Benavidez, Jose. I want to make sure I'm not confused here. Whatever. Did you watch Shakur Stevenson?
I did, yeah. I watched the whole card.
He stopped him, second round? Or was it third? I think it was the second. Shakur Stevenson is ninth? Was it the first? It might have been the first. I think it might have been the first. It was the first. And this guy was 36, 37 years old. Shakur's 19, 20?
Yeah, it was a good stoppage for Shakur because I was watching it and keeping up with Twitter. Yeah. At the same time, keeping up with the social media, see what everybody was kind of saying about the card. And, most people were on there. And I'll admit it, I was the same. Shakur, one of my arguments about him all the time was, he never had any strength. He'd always kind of just win, by unanimous decision, stuff like that. He always kind of had the skills, but he never really had the power. So, the guy that he took out in the first round was, and I don't think he'd ever actually lost by KO, and he'd actually fought, Scott Quigg.
Right.
He'd been in there with Lee Selby, so he'd been in there with a few British names,
Yeah, that was the big sell for him as the opponent.
Yeah, because he lost to Lee Selby by unanimous decision, and he lost to Scott Quigg last year by the same thing, unanimous decision. And obviously, both of those guys have been world champions, so Shakur Stevenson to go in there and blow him out within the first round was a huge statement.
Right.
So,
I agree. I think he looked good. He needed a performance like that.
And then he went out there and he did the stuff that he should be doing. He went out there and called out Selby straight after. So
yeah,
trying to get himself some big fights.
I mean, hey, I think Selby's kind of a jump, but
Yeah, agreed. I agree with
Like,
that.
it's obviously a jump.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, if he's calling him up and you just hope it's not like a Ryan Garcia calling out, Gervonta Davis
Lomachenko.
or Lomachenko and all that kind of stuff, But hopefully eventually they get to that level where they can fight that type of competition. But obviously he looked good. I think is it 8-0 or is he 9-0?
9-0 now.
He's 9-0 now.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the first 15 or so fights are essentially wins by design. Like you're building, especially him being on ESPN, such a big platform with many viewers. And I think I read that the ratings for that telecast were actually pretty good. So that's good news, not just for Crawford and Top Rank, but for the sport of boxing. I thought it was great. But transitioning to the main event, because I think the actual telecast of ESPN, because I think the undercard was shown on ESPN Plus, which is the app, but the main card on the actual ESPN channel was Shakur Stevenson's win and Terence Crawford. So Terence Crawford, Jose Benavidez Jr., with all that bad blood they've been having, especially at the weigh-in. I mean, did you see the weigh-in when they kind of went at it, and then Crawford swung at him with a right hand, and he backed up and he didn't get him, but when they slowed it down in slow motion, he really was trying to knock him out.
Yeah, because people were on Twitter and they were saying, "Oh, here we go! The fight's not sold out. They're trying to just make some bad blood." And then Top Rank actually got hold of the Twitter message that I saw and they said, "Well, it's sold out. It's Omaha. It's in TC's backyard.
Yeah.
Like, there's no more tickets. It's free. There's no pay-per-view."
Right.
So I think you could kind of see that the bad blood to me looked kind of real. And
I thought it was, even if it was a show.
Yeah.
I thought they did really well, but I don't think it was a show.
Because even between rounds, TC would kind of like look back and kind of smile at him, and Benavidez the whole time during the fight was kind of like every time he hit him, he'd just drop his hands and be like, "That didn't hurt, let's go, keep going."
No, absolutely, yeah, and I don't know. Like I said, if it was a show, I think they did it perfectly, but I don't think it was a show. Like, I don't view Crawford or Benavidez as those types of people in terms of actors.
I think a little bit of it from Benavidez's side was to
him more than Crawford, definitely.
But I think Benavidez did it a little bit to take Crawford off of that pedestal, because if he went in there, giving Crawford too much respect of like, hey, Crawford's this pound for pound champion, he's a god, I'm never going to beat him. I think he tried to kind of like normalize him, bring him down to the level, and trying to like, maybe draw Crawford into a bit of a street fight because he knew probably skill wise, Crawford's like, it's a different level to Benavidez. But to go back to the fight a little bit more, I was at the gym on the morning and I was chatting to a lot of guys down the gym, and everybody was kind of saying, "Oh, TC by knockout." Right. 3rd, 4th, 5th round.
I think we both chose Crawford last week, didn't we?
Yeah, we both chose Crawford.
Beforehand? I think we did, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but like you mentioned beforehand, it was an intriguing fight. Like Benavidez, like regardless if he's not, one of the top names in the division, he was a good. I he was a solid opponent, and he honestly did way better, especially the first couple rounds. His jab was doing pretty good work. You can see Crawford was trying to like work around and adapt to the jab, because Benavidez's jab was actually utilizing pretty good, but I think that was kind of his shining moment throughout the fight, was his jab work. And obviously, you use the jab to set up, the right hand, the overhand right, and further combinations. And I think I saw that he was trying, but Crawford just is so skillful and so slick that he wasn't letting himself get hit by those shots. And so as Benavidez was trying to adapt with that jab, Crawford, at the same time adapting to him, was able to dance around it, and then eventually adapted where he started taking control of the fight. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I thought Benavidez did a lot better than people kind of gave him credit for beforehand.
They stood there and fought. They did.
Yeah, like you said, like to me, I thought he did really well the first 5 rounds. He kind of just, planted his foot in the middle and tried to like keep Crawford at bay with his jab. He didn't kind of connect with too much. I didn't think, the stats at the end, the box stats at the end, Crawford kind of landed a lot more shots. I thought as the fight went on, I thought he kind of left it a little bit late because, he was down on the cards, by quite a lot. And I think from maybe the 10th, 11th, and 12th, he should have really just gone there and said, you know what, like I'm going to have to go for it now. It seemed like he just kind of left it till the 12th, where like he's only got that 3 minutes to land that knockout punch, right? Because I think he knew and his corner knew, like, hey, TC's kind of performed better. It's in his hometown. There's not much chance of me getting a decision because he definitely hadn't, gone in there and won.
No, absolutely not.
The majority of the rounds. So I think maybe from the last 3 rounds, he should have said, let's go. Just throw it, just start throwing bombs, try and corner him and catch him.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I agree completely that he waited too long to let his hands go. Like, obviously when you got to the championship rounds, especially 11th and 12th, and even the 10th, or maybe, I don't know, maybe it was just fatigue. Who knows? But like, you're right though. Like you could see that in the 12th, he tried to just put his foot on the gas and just like, okay, let's just go for it. And they exchanged. He just lost the exchange and got caught with that uppercut. And then he fell to the side. Like he was like balancing on his right foot and then he just tipped over.
That was a beautiful shot.
It was a nice shot.
It was a beautiful shot.
That was a nice shot. That exchange was really great. That was really great. And then Crawford comes from under with the hook. I thought that was a great shot. And then, he gets up and he's back into it. And I was like, oh, no way. I was like, if he survives this round, I was like, I'm going to be impressed. He's going to lose the fight. But, obviously when Crawford, when he knows you're hurt, he finishes you. He finishes you. And then he got him against ropes. And then the referee jumped in and just stopped it. And man, I thought that was left it right for the end and then left the fans home, send his hometown crowd home happy, of course. I thought that was a good stoppage. That was a good stoppage and a good win for him. Because I was like, man, if this goes to decision, yeah, Benavidez was like, holding his own. But, I think a lot of people expected, obviously, like we were talking about, Crawford to stop him. And I guarantee you, I mean, like me and if he didn't stop him and it did go to a decision, people were like, oh, Spence or Thurman or Garcia or Porter would have stopped him. Like Benavidez isn't a name, Yeah, that just shows that he's not pound for pound. Like, it's always a narrative.
Well, it's weird you say that actually, because on Twitter, even though he knocked Benavidez out, I think because it took him 12 rounds, people were still saying that.
Of course. Well, yeah, there's always going to be a narrative. It happens. It's just, in any type of sport, it doesn't matter, but especially combat sports, boxing, MMA, it just happens.
Did you see on the world famous BoxRec stats? He's now top on pound for pound.
Yeah, but don't they do an algorithm? Like, yeah. I it's good to look at that as a reference, but they've said that like they don't. It's an algorithm. It's like a mathematical equation, so it's not.
Well, the fact that Jeff Horn was once in the in the top 10.
That's the perfect example. And we're sorry if you're to our Australian listeners. We love our Australia, but come on, But you know what? I'm still a fan of the Hornet. I still believe that you get to rematch with Crawford, he's going to sting him. He's going to win.
Well, just think that a school teacher was one time in the top 10 pound for pound. You're not going to mess around in class knowing that the Hornet's going to come give you a right hook and lay you out in class.
I think he should. I'm telling you, he should just run with that gimmick and
the world's hardest school teacher.
Yeah, that, and then just like, I'm gonna sting you like with the Hornet, man. I'm telling you, you get to rematch with Crawford, any of the other top welterweights, they better be careful because that
he's actually fighting Mundine.
Oh, really? That's right. That's right.
Kind of off topic, but yeah, it's Mundine's last ever fight. He's come out saying that he's fighting him, and then that's Mundine's done.
Oh, he's not going to beat the Hornet. He's going to get stung.
Mundine must be at least 41 by now.
Oh yeah, but it doesn't matter though. It doesn't matter if you're 41 or 21. The Hornet's going to sting you. So Crawford just got lucky. So
he's 43.
He's 43. Yeah. Oh gosh. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Horn, regardless, like he's he still has a lot of room to grow. And I don't know how we got on the topic of Horn now. I was following the comedic channel, the comedic avenue over here. But going back to Crawford, obviously he stops Benavidez in the final round, 12th round of the fight, retains his WBO 147-pound welterweight world title. And of course, what are the questions that's on everybody's mind following this win? Who's next? And not just who's next in terms of like a general question. Is Spence next? Errol Spence, IBF 147-pound champion, world champion. Because obviously, especially boxing fans know, I guess it's the eye test, what I've heard a lot in terms of the eye test, that Crawford and Errol Spence are the two best welterweights in the division. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say so. That was TC's second fight, Crawford's second fight at welterweight. Kind of a huge step up from the Hornet. Obviously, that was his first fight when he took Horn's WBO title. Yeah. So it was a good performance. I think people kind of expected him to take Benavidez out earlier than he did. But looking at when they both got in the ring on the night, you could see the size difference in Benavidez and Benavidez's his fight plan, the game plan he came in with kind of stopped TC from really being able to do that. So the Errol Spence fight, to me, I think Crawford is the more skilled natural boxer. I think, Spence is still skilled, but I say Spence's main kind of attribute, his main attributes over Terence Crawford are going to be his size and his power.
Right.
And he's actually younger, he's still come from good pedigree. He was Olympian. So I would actually go for Spence during that.
I'd pick Spence, but I think it's like, it's still a 50-50 fight, but I wouldn't be like, I don't know who. Like, if I had to lean towards somebody, I'd lean towards Spence. Do
you think we'll see it though, in 2019?
I don't think so. And that's what I'm, transitioning to in terms of, obviously Crawford just signed an extension with Top Rank, and Bob Arum did come out in a previous interview, especially after Crawford had signed. I think it was this past weekend actually, saying that he's essentially disregarded all the other welterweights besides Spence, pretty much acknowledging that Spence is the only one that's on Crawford's level. They're like at a similar level, and pretty much saying that they're open to, Top Rank is open to making that fight. Obviously we've heard words like that before from different promoters and stuff, but the biggest thing is that ESPN asked Crawford after the fight in the post-fight interview, about the biggest names. I don't remember if they asked directly about Spence. Did he ask directly about Spence? Do you remember that?
I think so. I've seen an interview. I can't remember whether it was the in-ring interview, but someone definitely asked him about it. If I remember rightly, Crawford kind of just like openly said that, he was kind of willing to fight Spence. He was willing to fight any of the big names in that division.
Right. Yeah. Crawford didn't really mention, at least in the post-fight interview in ring, he didn't really mention Spence's name. But he gave the generic answer like we've heard before from the big top fighters, like, I'll fight anybody. I'm open to anybody. But he did say that he hopes that Bob Arum and Al Heyman obviously is the lead guy at Premier Boxing Champions, PBC, that they would enter talks, pretty much they would enter negotiation phases for that fight. But, is it going to happen? I don't know. I mean, I think the direct quote from Crawford in an ESPN interview following the fight was, "I want all of those fights. I've been saying it. I said what I said. I'm willing to fight anyone. I'm not ducking no one. I don't make the fights. I fight them." I remember every time I hear that, when I hear a fighter say, "Oh no, I don't make the fights. I just fight them," I always think about Mayweather, because Mayweather, especially just after the De La Hoya fight, that was his go-to statement when they would ask him, like, "Oh, you're going to fight Mosley, or you're going to fight Pacquiao, Hatton, all the guys at the time?" And he would always say, he's like, and it took him a couple years to kind of finally, do his own thing. But that was always his go-to reasoning in terms of, I let Al Heyman and Leonard Ellerbe conduct my belts. Whoever they say, I'll fight. I'm pretty much the same answer. Like, I'll fight anybody my promoter pretty much puts in front of me.
So we're essentially just blaming somebody else.
Yeah. So that's why, like, when I heard him say that, like, I don't think Crawford's afraid, but I think it's just like, him signing the extension and all that stuff. Like, knowing, Crawford's a smart guy, obviously. And he knows, he's been in the game long enough, especially at this level, where he knows the politics in between all these promoters. And usually these promoters don't ever really come together for these bigger fights unless the financial gain is just so enormous that everybody's going to get a piece of the pie. But I do hope it works out, but I don't think it's going to happen in 2019. It might happen in 2020. I don't think it's going to happen in 2019. But if it does happen, I'm going to be the first to say I was wrong. But I don't think it's going to happen in 2019.
His next fight is supposed to be against either the two top-ranked guys in that division, the Kalvalauskas,
of course,
who's 20 wins, 16 KOs, or the kind of the hot prospect, Alexander Besputin, 11 and 9 KOs, both undefeated.
Yeah, but I get it. Yeah, and in a sense, like, these guys who obviously don't have the names, but they're doing good in terms of their fighting, their record and everything. Obviously, they're working hard to deserve a shot. And if they get the call for the fight, of course you wouldn't pass up that opportunity. But at the end of the day, we know who the competitors are at 147. It's Porter, who's got the WBC belt. Even guys like Danny Garcia and those guys, like, even though Danny Garcia doesn't have a belt, like, he's still a competitive guy at 147. And even you still got Thurman there, and Thurman needs to come back. Like, and it's Spence. Like, you got all these guys. Like, I don't know.
They're just keeping it in-house, though.
I get it, and obviously every promoter is guilty of that, obviously. But Top Rank is if you know the history of the sport, has done that for a while. But, at the end of the day, it's a business. You got to grow your market. You want to protect your investment. I get it. At the end of the day, they're companies too. They need to make money. So there has to be a balance in between. But it is what it is. It is what it is. But I don't know. You think that fight's going to happen in 2019? Spence Crawford?
No, I think Spence will probably fight
Porter.
Yeah, I think he'll fight Porter because they both seem to want it. I think Spence should win that. He's younger, more skilled. Porter's very, very one-dimensional. Just kind of comes towards you like a train.
Right. I still think Kell Brook can do pretty well against even, if they've made Crawford like Brook. I know Brook with his eyes and stuff. It just puts him at a disadvantage. But, like,
did you know Brook's never lost? Did you read that little comment he said the other day? He says he's never lost because the only reason he ever lost those two fights was because of his eye. So essentially he's never lost.
He lost. He lost. Like, if he was saying that, and the only loss he had was Triple G, then I would be like, okay, I see that because he moved up essentially 2 divisions to fight arguably at that point that the most dangerous fighter in the world, Gennady Golovkin, and people knew, like, he was an underdog big time, and but he had his moments in there. He had his moments, but I still think in terms of skill, he still has like the skill to kind of give you some trouble. But it's just his eyes, the eye sockets is what's the X factor behind his future fights now. But, like, if Crawford, like, if Arum and them made were able to make a fight with like a Brook and stuff, because like, come on, like you can't really make a fight with these guys who are highly ranked in the WBO rankings. It's going to get to a point where the backlash is just going to be so bad against Crawford and Top Rank. Like, come on, man. Like, the Al Heyman, in a sense, and all of them can get away with it right now because, like, he has essentially the top welterweights in his stable. Yeah, they say, oh, yeah, they're just making it in their stable and stuff. Like, well, it's convenient for him because not only it keeps it in-house, but he has all the top guys. He's made, in the last 2 years, we've had what? Thurman Porter, Garcia Thurman, Porter Garcia, Spence. We had Spence Brook, and Spence went across the pond for that. You know, that was a cross promotional fight.
That was his division for a long time. Al Heyman. He literally just. I think he knew that was the division that everybody was. Everyone's eyes were on that division, you know, thanks to Floyd and Manny.
And then the latest report. I don't think it's been official yet, but it's likely that, you know, from what we've been hearing, the sources we've had, is that Manny Pacquiao signed a multiple fight deal with Al Heyman.
That's the rumor, yeah.
And Pacquiao's got he's got a title, right? WBO?
The WBA.
WBA, excuse me. He's got the WBA title at 147. And yeah, people, I don't agree with the notion that people are saying like, oh yeah, Pacquiao's old, he's disregarded. I still think like, yeah, of course, Pacquiao's not what he was 8 years ago, 10 years ago, even 5-6 years ago. But I still think Pacquiao has the discipline to be competitive with any welterweight in there. You know, like he still trains and he's still, you know, he's still doing it even with his congressional duties in the Philippines. So I think it's good. Like I think Al Heyman jumping on that, and then I think obviously that pissed off Bob Arum. Like, oh, you took my cash cow, who was my cash cow for all these years. And I think Bob Arum actually told like an interview with an outlet saying like, oh yeah, like, you know, I think where he was pretty much talking about like, oh, Pacquiao Mayweather 2 is nobody wants to see that anymore. It's just a cash grab. And it was so ironic. It's just like, oh, of course, like you're not a part of it anymore. So like, and I think he acknowledged like, yeah, they'll still make a lot of money, but it's not going to be anything like the competitiveness. Like, oh, I mean, what do you expect? You know? So I thought that was kind of funny. But you know, if it does turn out to be official that Pacquiao has a multiple fight deal with Heyman, I think that's great. And Heyman literally has a majority of the welterweight division under his stable. Porter, he's got Garcia, and not just Danny Garcia. He's got Mikey Garcia, who's, you know, who we've talked about that before, who's willing to go up to welterweight and wants to fight Spence, like, which is ridiculous. But you know, I don't know. Like I said, there's financials behind it, and we want to see the fights. We beg to see the fights. But, you know, that's why sometimes I wish like we didn't have all these, you know, world championship sanctioning bodies. And I kind of just wish we had just like one entity that was all one belt, like the UFC.
Had the UFC, yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, but like, you know, then there's people who argue like, oh, well, they don't really have like stars though, like, because they can't build them because they're forced to fight all these guys. Like, well, look at McGregor. Yeah, even with losses, he's still a superstar. You can always have superstars. It just, you know, it just depends on how you go about it. But
just the personalities of the people, and you know,
that's what it is, man.
They'll always shine through eventually, like McGregor.
Yeah. So, you know, it is what it is. But, you know, I hope it gets made. But I don't know. I don't want to see him against some, even though they're highly ranked on the WBO rankings. I don't want to see him fight anybody there. So, but I don't know. I digress on that. And then, you know, what else do we got? What else do we have happened these past couple of days?
We had a big fight from over in England. Lewis Ritson against Francisco Patera for the European title. Lewis Ritson was fighting in Newcastle. I watched it on the new DAZN.
DAZN.
The old new DAZN.
Every time I hear the word DAZN, I think about pizza. I mean, for our UK listeners, there's a term over here in pizza places. I don't know if they call them. What do you guys call pizza in the UK? Pizza?
Yeah, strangely pizza. Yeah.
Really? Because you know in New York they call it like pies and stuff like that. I don't know. I didn't want to insult our listeners over there, but every time I hear the word DAZN, I think about the word, what is it? Pazzone? So there's like a pizza term over here, which is like kind of like a pizza in like a dough. I don't know. The Pizza Hut sells it, but it's hilarious. But I don't know. Continue. What were you saying?
So we had the big fight, Lewis Ritson against Francisco Patera for the European title. He went in undefeated at the time, fighting in his hometown of Newcastle. Big sellout crowd. The atmosphere sounded amazing. I'm gonna have to go home to try and sample a bit of that. With Eddie Hearn, the old Earn with Hearn.
Hearn with Hearn.
He's changed it over the last few years. Unluckily, since I've kind of moved, the boxing scene has become huge over there.
Right.
So every time you kind of watch the fights, with Anthony Joshua or even, the guys over in Liverpool, the Smith brothers.
Right.
Or even now with Josh Kelly, Lewis Ritson up in Newcastle. You can hear all the football chants. You can hear the sellout crowd. So it sounded amazing, the local support.
This was Ritson's first career loss, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was undefeated going into the fight. He kind of like a little background for people who maybe don't know him. Kind of, he was picked to fight on one of Eddie Hearn's shows against, who was it now? It was a couple of fights ago, Robbie Barrett, and I think he was picked kind of as the opponent. He wasn't signed to Eddie Hearn at the time. He came in there, beat Robbie Barrett, knocked him out in the 7th round, and Eddie Hearn, picked him up. Obviously, Robbie Barrett was the A side, Lewis Ritson was the B side, so he picked him up. He then went on like a knockout streak, knocked out Joe Murray, knocked out Scotty Cardle, knocked out Paul Highland Jr., and then knocked out Oscar Amador. And then his next fight was he went and won the British title, then left that scene, tried to step up to the European scene, which was the fight on the weekend against Francisco Patera.
And Patera got booed. He got booed pretty bad when they announced that he was the winner. I think he got 116, 112 on all 3 cards.
Yeah, I think watching the fight, I think that was just more the fact that the hometown guy lost.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
It wasn't anything to do with the decision, because I think even Eddie Hearn, kind of said at the time that the right guy won on the night. Francisco Patera, though, even though he wasn't really a big name, he'd actually been in with quite a few good fighters. He'd been in with Yvonne Mendy, who you may remember beat Luke Campbell. He gave
really?
Luke Campbell his first ever loss. He also fought
Linares beat Campbell out here in the Forum, I think, last year.
Yeah, right. Campbell. That was a close fight.
It was actually pretty entertaining fight.
And then another one he fought was Sean Masher Dodd, another British fighter from Liverpool. And then Edis, I think it's pronounced Tatley. He went
Tatley.
He went over to Tatley's backyard and actually beat Tatley. So Francisco Patera, even though he's not a huge name, his resume is actually it's pretty decent.
What's his best win?
His best win, maybe Tatley. Going over Tatley's backyard and fighting him.
European title?
It was a European title, yeah. So it wasn't.
I try to keep track of all these freaking titles. There's so many of them, and just like, what? I don't know. They're there though. They're good step ups. I understand. But
it was a good fight. It kind of, I think Lewis Ritson went in there and tried to, because he'd maybe been on a knockout streak too much. He kind of went in there aggressive early on, and then I don't know whether he kind of like punched himself out or. Because it looked like Patera was, just going to some really, really crisp bodywork. So I don't know whether it was either Lewis Ritson just couldn't recover from all of the body shots that was kind of, taking its toll during the fight, or whether it was just the fact that, Ritson hadn't really got in too many rounds because he's been on such a streak of knocking people out. But you could see he kind of looked like visibly troubled from around the 7th onwards, just due to Patera's like constant bodywork. He was just putting money in the bag. Just teeing off on him.
Money in the bank when you hit to that body.
Exactly. That seems to what he was doing. He was just cutting down the tree, like they say, starting at the bottom, just work your way up. So he was doing that. Patera, I'm kind of glad that they didn't give Lewis Ritson a home decision, some home cooking, because I think, people on DAZN, the American fans, if they'd have seen that and, living over here, people always give me a bit of shit. They're always like, nobody gets a decision in England. When I watch the fights over there, all the foreign guys. That's why Americans don't want to fight over there.
Please don't hate us.
So I was kind of glad that the right guy won on the day. I think Lewis Ritson. I don't know whether maybe he needs to move up in weight. He kind of did look like a bit weak. Because he kind of looks quite big for that lightweight division. So I don't know whether, putting on a few pounds and moving up a division would also maybe, if his power can go with him, his explosive power that he seems to, carry. I think, a move up in weight would do him good. He's still young at 25. So I think maybe just stepping that down to British level for a few more fights and then stepping back up to either European or maybe, one of the minor WBA, copper, interim world title, one of those crazy belts that just...
I thought that was real. You said it like you said it like you knew what you were talking about. I was like, what the hell?
Something like that.
But, going to the next topic over here. This was actually announced today, Monday, October, 15th?
15th today.
October 15th, 2018, a couple hours ago, which I was surprised. Artur Beterbiev, who's actually just coming off a win against Callum Johnson. Was it like 2 weeks ago? Or was it less than that? He's already going to make his second title defense in likely December. Maybe November, but I think it's December. Against big brawler Joe Smith Jr., who many might remember stopped Bernard Hopkins in his final fight out here in LA a couple of years ago. I think that's a cool fight. I like Joe Smith. When I saw Beterbiev's name saying they agreed to make a fight already, I was like, well, he just fought. He's staying active, man, at world championship level, even with the world title. I think Jaime Munguia is putting these pressure on these people and like, oh, I'm fighting 6 times. You guys got a 2-2, and I got the world title. So, what do you think about that matchup? Joe Smith Jr. and Artur Beterbiev in December, likely.
It'd be good to see Joe Smith back. He hasn't fought too much over the last few years. 2017, he lost a 10-round unanimous decision to Sullivan Barrera. And then he was injured, wasn't he? He was injured.
I think so, yeah.
He was injured for quite a while. Came back this year for Melvin Russell in June, which was a first round KO. So I think that was, obviously just getting Joe Smith back out there after being injured for so long. I like Joe Smith. He's definitely fan friendly. He comes to fight on the day, same as Beterbiev. So I think
there was a report that Smith was in negotiation with Dimitri Bivol to fight Bivol for his world title at light heavyweight. But then Beterbiev swooped in, Hearn swooped in, and took the thunder and reportedly made a deal. So
he signed with Beterbiev. Did he sign a deal with DAZN?
I think so. I think it's like a cross promotion or something. Because I think he's also represented by Star Boxing. Right, if I remember correctly. But I think they I don't know if they have, maybe I don't know if it's a long-term agreement with Eddie Hearn and DAZN or fight-by-fight basis, but either way, Eddie Hearn's got that 8-year, $1 billion agreement to put on boxing content for DAZN. So that's huge, man. $1 billion, not $1 million, $1 billion. It's a lot.
It'll definitely be a good fight. That it won't go 12 rounds. So
I won't, but that I mean, those are the ones you want to watch.
Exactly.
But they're not going to go 12 rounds. So I look forward to that. I think I like that Beterbiev is, especially as a world title holder, world champion. I think that it's cool that a couple weeks after his last win, he's already on the prowl again. So
December's looking a good month.
Pretty stacked. Wilder Fury at the beginning.
Lomachenko's back in December.
Lomachenko's coming back in December. They haven't announced Did they announce an opponent for him yet?
Isn't it it's supposed to be the mandatory. It's supposed to be Pedraza.
Oh, that's right. Oh, unification bout. That's right.
It's supposed to be Pedraza.
I forgot about that. But this is what let's get into the drama of and I'm not talking about drama in the ring. I'm talking about drama outside the ring. BJ Saunders vacated his title after testing positive for the doping test and then doing that, didn't he send out some video with like some offensive stuff? And
yeah, he sent out a video of he stopped some lady in the street, told the lady like, hey, I'll give you this bag of cocaine if you go and punch this guy, and I know who that guy is, he's a pedophile. And the lady attacked the guy in the street and it was all made up. He wasn't a pedophile.
What a joke.
Billy Joe didn't have cocaine or whatever it was to give her, and him and some of the people in his car.
Was he like high, or was he just being stupid?
I mean, I think he was just one of those things, lads being lads, and he thought it was funny at the time, and then obviously in hindsight, doing that to people is Obviously not funny, you know.
I mean, I do I want to feel bad for the guy? I mean, he knew that the piece of having that world title at 160 was his bargaining chip to get a fight with Canelo, to get a fight with Triple G, the big fights at 160, the money fights. And he knew that. And I think especially if he would have beat Demetrius Andrade, who's actually now fighting for that title in December, or was it November? December, right?
Isn't it this weekend?
Oh, is it? Damn.
I think it's the 20th.
Holy crap, it is this weekend. Oh, man. We got a lot of stuff coming this last quarter of the year. And, man, that completely slipped my mind. At first, there was reports that it was going to be for the interim title, and then they finally just decided to completely strip Saunders, and now it's going to be for the full title.
He's just kind of ruined his own career.
I still think he's going to come back. And he's going to get.
But the paydays that you were just saying, he had that bargaining power.
That was his bargaining chip. Come on.
And then he came into a few fights overweight and,
right.
Not looking too good. Was it Willie Monroe Jr.? It was a terrible fight for the fans. And then he got himself in shape. He moved to Dominic Ingle. He whipped him into shape. He then had a great, performance against David Lemieux over in Canada. Good payday. I think Golden Boy, paid Billy Joe Saunders good, thinking that they were going to pay him to come to Canada and they were going to take the title off him.
Yeah. I was one of the few who thought, okay, I think Lemieux can do it. I knew it was a good fight, but this was like, okay, Lemieux was a good opponent at 160. Regardless, like I mentioned before, Lemieux's one of those guys that like, okay, you should fight before you get to like Canelo or Triple G. Like, and if you can beat a guy like Lemieux, then like, okay, get to the boss level. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He's kind of a bit of a gatekeeper.
Yeah, essentially. And Saunders just outboxed him like nasty. And I was like, wow. Like, I didn't think it was going to be like that. Like, he made Lemieux look like an amateur.
Because that was, to me, he kind of re-announced himself onto the world scene.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Everybody, people were like, you know what? Billy Joe Saunders has the tools. He has the skills.
That was a big win.
To worry Triple G, because he can dance around him. He can do this. I think he'll worry Canelo. And then he makes a fight with Martin Murray over in England, you know, just to kind of like a keep busy sort of fight. Billy Joe should really, if he's that world standard, he should beat someone like Martin Murray. Gets injured, pulls out. Rearranges it. Right, let's go again. Pulls out, thinking he was going to get the Triple G fight because of the Canelo, obviously, madness this year. And then that falls through. He's left with nothing, So he kind of like...
If he would have... Oh, man. Like...
He made Martin Murray go through essentially 2 training camps, probably lost all that money because the fight didn't go ahead. And then he does the stupid video, and then he tests positive for this.
BJ Saunders.
Dude, he just ruined his career this past year. Now he's got no WBO world title.
I'm sure he's pissed.
He's gone from probably being able to command millions.
That's a lot of money.
Fights.
That's a lot of money he lost.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
To me, he needs to keep active. Get back out there now, fight somebody, even, like a taxi driver. Just go out there, blow somebody out like, hey guys, I'm still here,
No, yeah, I still think that he'll be back.
I think he has to. He's still young.
He knows he needs to come back. There's too much money on the table, and he just needs to keep fighting and stay busy. And but he
doesn't stay busy. That's his problem.
Well, he doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't. But he's going to need to at least 3 times next year in order to get back to where he was. Like, I'm sure if he fights once or twice next year, even once, and if they're going to put him right back up at the world title picture as a contender to get a title shot. So, I think he'll be back, but like he just needs to stop making these stupid mistakes outside the ring. But
do you know the thing that kind of like puzzles me about all of this madness for his ban is that...
Tell us how you feel.
Do you know the Massachusetts website for the boxing licenses?
Yeah, the commission
say that, right? So he tested positive in a VADA testing, right?
Mm-hmm. Not Nevada, VADA.
So when you look at who the Massachusetts boxing licenses actually go through for their testing, it's WADA. So they're telling us they don't recognize VADA testing.
But WADA with a W.
Exactly. But
what the hell?
Yeah, exactly. So, but yet they still banned him in They didn't ban him. They didn't allow him to have a license for the Andrade fight because the fight's in Boston, which is in Massachusetts.
Right.
But their website says that they actually only recognize WADA. With a W.
WADA.
But the test was a WADA. So I'm lost. I'm completely lost.
We're going to do a future show where we just, we're going to dedicate a portion of the show to just talk about the differences between VADA and WADA. Because I know there's people out there who are just like, man, what the hell? Like, WADA's like the world anti-doping and VADA's like the voluntary anti-doping.
Exactly. So it was a voluntary test that he took because the substance he was taking is allowed in
WADA.
It's allowed by WADA. It's also allowed in Britain. You're just not allowed to take it on the day. So the day of the fight, the morning of the fight, you can't have it in your system. And on the nighttime of the fight, you can't have that in the system.
Right.
Because essentially it's like an estrogen-based product, which helps you train longer, gives you more energy. So, you can run quicker. When you're tired, you take it, it'll wake you up. Yeah. Essentially, and should help you burn fat. So,
WADA and BADA. I don't know.
At the end of the day, I suppose, he should have known maybe that was one of the things that VADA doesn't allow, and he was going to get tested, so he shouldn't have it in his system. But to me, if their website states, hey, the only testing that we recognize is by WADA, then they shouldn't be able to ban him for it. But,
if that's,
I'm lost.
I don't know. He does have a point if, it's allowed in WADA, and there's points there, but then he did that stupid video and I don't know. I think that didn't help his credibility and his image, and
which they probably took into account, which they shouldn't. Yeah, because they should just look at the test.
No, absolutely, but like that didn't help his cause. Like, it just like, and even if they say like, oh no, we didn't take that into account, we just took it into account this. Like, they did. They're just not going to say it. Exactly. Like anybody would. I don't know. It like you said, he needs to stop making these stupid mistakes, and I think that video was the downfall of that.
I'm hoping that they probably won't, but I'm hoping that Andrade and is it how do you pronounce the guy's name? The guy's fight.
Yeah.
The mandatory challenger. I hope whoever wins the fight, probably Andrade, I hope they give Billy Joe Shot a chance to fight for the title. He doesn't necessarily deserve it because he was essentially banned.
I think he will though. I think he's gonna be the subsequent challenger.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that they do it because essentially I believe that the WBO they didn't actually strip him. Billy ended up giving up his title.
Right.
I don't know whether he had a chat with the WBO and said like, hey, I'll give it up, but I want to be first in line to fight.
Right.
And I imagine it probably won't be in Massachusetts after not getting.
I don't think he's ever going to fight in Massachusetts ever again. But he's just lucky it wasn't like New York, California, Vegas. Like he's lucky on that. He's very lucky but I don't know. Yeah, a lot of these commissions do stick together. If you do one dirty, the other ones kind of have a bad image on you from doing that. Like, oh, if he did that to them, then he's gonna do it to us. So, regardless, it doesn't help. But he's the silver lining is that he's lucky it's not California, New York, Vegas, Nevada, stuff like that, because those are the big ones in America. But going to my favorite story of the past couple days, Deontay Wilder, WBC heavyweight champion, who's fighting Tyson Fury December 1st at the Staples Center here in Los Angeles, California, was doing his media rounds, and he was on an ESPN program, and he punched a mascot. My favorite story of the last couple days. And it's not like he punched a mascot like he was mad or something. Like the hosts of the program told him like, oh yeah, show us like, punch the mascot. And obviously there's somebody in the suit. And then I saw the video, and when I read it, I was like, oh, I'm sure he didn't really knock him out or anything. Man, if you guys haven't seen that video, go on YouTube or just Google Wilder punching ESPN mascot. He really knocked the crap out of him. And like, after like, this was like, that day it didn't really get any traction, but like he issued an apology recently about it, saying, I think he said that he didn't think anybody was in there. Did you see the video?
Yeah, I saw the video. I just found it funny that I'm guessing it was for clickbait, so people would click on the link on the internet, because the initial reports came out saying that Wilder floored the mascot, not knowing a human being was inside.
I mean, like
but the mascot walked onto stage to be punched. So I think he knew that, there was a human inside of it. So I'm guessing that was just clickbait. So people would, get some views. He came out and apologized, and he invited the person to the fight.
Saying, I mean, like, it's cool. Like, his actual Instagram statement was, "I sincerely apologize to the brave man that was injured. If this is true, I have the utmost high respect for him, his participation, willingness, and courage. If this is true, I personally would like you said, invite him to my December 1st fight." I think it was hilarious. Like, he's like, "Oh, I'm applauding this guy for having the courage and the willingness to participate." And it's like, what? Like, I don't know. I think, whatever. It was a mistake. Like, he like, I think they told him to do it, and he didn't. He just went for it. He's like, "Okay, I'm going to do it." Like, I think he assumed, like, okay, I think he knew that somebody was in there, but he probably thought, okay, there's probably more padding under there.
Yeah,
I think when he connected, he's like, "Oh crap, I really hit this guy." But on TV, I think he really wanted to show it, and then it kind of gained some traction. But in terms of publicity, I thought it was kind of good. Like, like you said, all these clickbait headlines. Wilder knocks out ESPN mascot. I thought it was funny when I saw it. I was like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, anything to kind of promote the fight. They seem to have be really pushing the Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder. Wilder's definitely been on TV a lot more lately than he used to be. So it looks like they're definitely trying to push him now, get ticket sales and all that sort of stuff coming through. Ready for that fight. The Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury card seems to be taking a little bit more shape. I hear Chris Ariola's going to be on the card now.
The Nightmare.
A local fighter, local Riverside guy.
Yeah, he's out here from Southern California, Greater LA.
He's fighting the dreaded TBA.
Oh, what? TBA is undefeated.
Yeah.
TBA is undefeated. Never lost. LeVar Ball, never lost.
So that should be good.
I'm putting my money on TBA right there. Sorry, Nightmare. But if TBA gets substituted, I'm putting my money on you.
It'd be good. I've seen he's been out sparring and stuff like that, Chris Ariola, in like a lot of the local gyms. So, it'd be good to see him back out there. He's not fought. His last fight, I believe, was Wilder. 2016?
Holy crap, was it?
Yeah, 2016.
Dang, no way. That was in Alabama, too.
8th round stoppage, so...
yeah, I remember that, yeah. I was at that press conference. It was in downtown right there, LA Live, in downtown Los Angeles. I was at that press conference for Wilder and Ariola. So...
He's been in with some names over the years, Chris Ariola.
Klitschko, Wilder...
Bermain Stavern twice.
So yeah, he's been around. Like I remember when he fought Klitschko in 2009. That was a big deal. They packed the Staples Center out here for a heavyweight title fight, and
he fought Adamek when Adamek was actually a little bit of a force.
He did, yeah.
Back in the day.
That's good though. But I think that's the only one that's kind of shaping to be on the undercard, isn't it?
And one of Fury's buddies, Isaac Lowe, another guy from kind of Fury's stable. He lives out in Morecambe in England. He's on the card. He's also fighting the dreaded TBA at the minute.
Oh, TBA, undefeated.
He's got a busy night. He looks like he's fighting back to back. He's fighting against Lowe, and then after that he's getting in with Chris Ariola.
Oh wow!
So it's going to be a busy night for him.
TBA, man, never lost. TBA's undefeated. But transitioning to the last hurdle of the fight or the show here. They fight. It's a podcast. But we have John Molina, who was scheduled to fight Victor Ortiz a couple weeks ago here in Southern California on a PBC on Fox card. And obviously, what happened with Victor Ortiz. And Victor Ortiz just pled not guilty to the sexual assault charges that were levied against him. Everybody deserves their day in court. So, we'll see how that plans out. But I was actually looking forward to that fight, Molina Ortiz. I thought it was a good matchup, but John Molina is in talks to come on the show next week. So hopefully we confirm with that and we get him on. So I think he'll be here next Monday for next week's show. And it should be that'll be interesting to hear his point of view in terms of, what happened and what he's feeling now. Hopefully if they're still trying to make that fight, if he's still interested in that fight. I know he's gave interviews, to other outlets and everything, but to the people who haven't watched those videos or those interviews, hopefully this is the first time, and you give us a chance to interview him so you can hear his words firsthand. So John Molina is scheduled to be in the studio next Monday, next week's show. I'm excited for that. Especially, I of course I feel for the guy losing the fight. He was going to be the main event of PBC on Fox. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah. Then just before we leave, I guess we should look into next week's fights. So we've got a card over in obviously Massachusetts, the one we were talking about. It's coming from the TD Garden in Boston. It's another Earn with Hearn card. It's second card in
the zone
in the US. So the first kind of fight of notice, I would say, is Katie Taylor, 10-0.
Katie Taylor, right?
Yeah, the British female, probably the most well known, I would say, women's fighter coming out of Great Britain at the moment.
Right. She's
fighting Cindy Serrano for
one of the Serrano sisters.
Exactly. The other one actually fought Amanda for last weekend in.
She won
in the Combat Americas in MMA. Yeah. So they're fighting for the IBF World Lightweight title and also the WBA World Lightweight title.
Hey, these females are going cross combat sports here, MMA, boxing. I think it's crazy, but I think it's cool, man. Like they're going.
Like Ronda Rousey kind of like set the stall out for everybody. I guess.
Oh yeah, man. She paved the way, man. She wasn't just a star. She's a superstar. So that was a big moment. So I think that's cool.
I'm gonna back the Brit in this fight. I think Katie Taylor's gonna take that.
Who's she fighting again?
Cindy Serrano.
Interesting. You know what? I am not gonna join you, and I'm going with Serrano in your face.
I'm gonna back the Brit. I think she takes her out. I think you're seventh.
You're being too gracious here. I think Serrano stops her in the first 30 seconds of the fight. First round.
What?
Oh yeah, I got you with that, huh? Oh yeah.
Okay.
Actually, now I'm just being a little outlandish. I'll pick Serrano though. I'm going Serrano.
You're gonna go Serrano?
I'm going Serrano.
The next fight on that card is Tevin Farmer. Is going to be defending the International Boxing Federation World Super Featherweight title against James Tennyson from Britain.
Tevin Farmer, they were trying to match. There was always talks of him and Gervonta Davis matching up, right?
Yeah, that was the talk.
That was the talk, but obviously Davis's stock went up a little higher, and I don't know, maybe it was just too much of a dangerous fight for Farmer.
I think maybe next it gives him. He won the title. He gets a little defense against James Tennyson, and then maybe steps up and moves over to the Gervonta Davis because there's enough talk on social media. They can make the fight,
right?
So,
right.
Who have you got in that one? You're going to back your home fighter in Tevin Farmer, or are you gonna?
I'm gonna go Tevin Farmer.
You're gonna book that.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do Tevin Farmer in your face. Just do it, man. Follow my lead.
I'm going to have to back the Brit. I think every time it's the UK fighter, it's a big step up for him for Tennyson. I mean, his last fight was against Martin Ward, another British level fighter. So this is a huge step for him. His first time fighting outside of the UK as well, I believe. But I'm thinking maybe Tennyson might be able to sneak a decision. Farmer is good, but he's very hot and cold.
Right, yeah.
That's his problem, He had some troubles, obviously, early on in his career, but then he kind of managed to turn it around.
Right.
I'm hoping he could just catch his Farmer on a day that he's cold and then, manage just to take the decision. So I'm going to go 12 rounds.
Yeah.
Either unanimous or maybe a split decision since he's coming into, Tevin's obviously from the US.
I could see a split.
A split, maybe?
I could see a split.
And then the fight of the night, obviously, we touched on it earlier. Demetrius Andrade against Walter Kudonkwa.
I didn't even want to try to pronounce his name because I knew it, but I didn't want to try to pronounce it because I knew we'd get it wrong.
So Andrade's coming in 25-0, Walter's coming in. I'll just say his first name. It's 17-0. They're fighting for the WBO World Middleweight title, as we just touched on.
Right. And it's a full title, too. It's a full title. Like,
yeah. It's no copper, interim, diamond.
I think this is a golden opportunity for either of them, though. Because, like, they're going to be able to just shoot up to the top of the rankings.
I mean, obviously, Andrade obviously goes into the fight as favorite.
Right.
Kodonkwo, 17-0, 16 KOs, known as the Executioner. So he's got a
Bernard Hopkins. He's back.
So he's got a bit of a record, KO record. But this is definitely by far the biggest fight that he's ever been in.
Oh, absolutely.
Most of his fights have been over in Africa, fighting mainly in places like Accra and stuff like that, over in Ghana.
Yeah.
So this is a huge step up for him. So I'm going to go Andrade. Manages to school him really, and maybe takes him out in the later rounds.
I'm going to go Andrade too. I think we agree on this one for once. I agree with that, and I think it's going to be. I still think they're going to match him up with BJ Saunders next year. I think his next fight is going to be against BJ Saunders. I
hope so.
I just do. I don't think Andrade is going to get like a voluntary defense or anything if he wins the title. I think the only way the Executioner wins is by KO. He manages to catch Andrade and take him out. Hopefully he's talking to Bernard Hopkins about Executioner style. Because remember, they called B-Hop the Executioner. Exactly. But, wrapping up here, however you're listening to this, like we said, like we always say, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, CastBox, Audio Boom, all those platforms. There's too many to name. I forget them all the time. I always think of different ones every week. We appreciate it. Thanks for listening. This is episode 6. And as we mentioned, we have John Molina scheduled to be in studio next week on Monday. So be sure to tune in on that, whether it's on your car ride home, car ride to work, at home, wherever you're at. That should be a good interview with John Molina Jr. next Monday. And what do you got, Mike? Last wrap. As I say every week, if you listen to us via Apple Podcasts, please go in, give us those reviews. Give us a review. I'm sure you all want to give us a 5-star review. Yes. Tell us how good the British half of the podcast is. Yes. I'll let him have that one. Danny, not as much, but I'll let him have that one. He deserves a moment. He never gets moments. Just go on there and give us a review. It gives us more exposure, makes us more visible. Try and get us up the ranks. So it only takes a minute or two, so please just get on there and give us a quick review if you can. Absolutely. And remember, last thing I want to leave you guys with is don't get stung by the hornet. Jeff Horn, this is the last round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is the Last Round Podcast.